22nd. July is flying by. Actually, this year is flying by. We will start with roll call.
Supervisor Arroyo,
Here.
Supervisor Madrone,
Present.
Supervisor Bohn,
Yep.
Chair Bushnell,
Good morning again.
Supervisor Wilson is absent. Actually, Supervisor Wilson,
Say yes.
all are here.
Okay, and then before we salute our flag, I just want to wish my fellow board member Rex Bohn a happy birthday today. So can we salute our flag, please? Any modifications to the agenda, CAO?
Good morning, Chair Bushnell. There are no modifications this morning.
Okay, we're going to go right into the consent calendar. And does anybody on the board have anything to say besides proclamations on the consent calendar this morning? No? Okay, so our first proclamation is going to be the Americans with Disability Act. Let me get to my agenda item. Proclaim July 2025 as Disability Pride Month in Humboldt County. Is anybody here for this? Okay, because we have a time set and we do have another proclamation that people are here, I'm just going to recognize it and thank everybody for the proclamation, helping me get it together, and honoring disabilities for Pride Month. And then we're going to go to the next one, which is going to be Supervisor Arroyo.
Thank you. We have several folks from Coast Guard Sector Humboldt Bay here to receive this proclamation. You're welcome to come up to the podium. Thank you. This is a proclamation for Coast Guard Month. Whereas the United States Coast Guard is one of America's 6 armed forces and traces its founding to August 4th, 1790, when the first Congress authorized construction of 10 vessels to enforce tariff and trade laws, prevent smuggling, and protect federal revenue. And whereas today's Coast Guard excuse me, is the nation's oldest continuously operating maritime service, which over its 235-year history has included the U.S. Lighthouse Service, the Revenue Cutter Service, the Steamboat Inspection Service, the Lighthouse Board, the U.S. Life Saving Service, the Bureau of Navigation, and the Bureau of Marine Inspection and Navigation. And whereas the Coast Guard is a maritime, military, multi-mission service that is unique among the U.S. military branches for having a maritime law enforcement mission with jurisdiction in both domestic and international waters. And whereas 37 cities have worked diligently to acknowledge the contributions and services provided by Coast Guard members who serve in their communities, as well as Coast Guard veterans, and by doing so have been recognized as official Coast Guard cities, including the city of Eureka, which was designated as the second official Coast Guard city in the nation on June 3rd, 2000. And whereas the County of Humboldt heartily commends the service of the members of the Coast Guard and recognizes the role that service members and their families play beyond city limits throughout our county and the entire North Coast. And whereas Coast Guard family housing in the greater Eureka area lies within the unincorporated portion of the County of Humboldt, Coast Guard members live and work countywide, Coast Guard families support and strengthen our entire community, and our public agencies all benefit from the collaborative and positive relationship we enjoy with Coast Guard Sector Humboldt Bay, Coast Guard Sector San Francisco, Coast Guard Southwest District, and leaders at the area and federal level. And whereas Coast Guard Sector Humboldt Bay has a complement of 210 personnel who serve the safety and well-being of our community every day and who are responsible for maritime safety and security operations from the Sonoma County line to the Oregon border. And Sector Humboldt Bay has, within the past year, conducted 175 search and rescue missions, protected $8 million of property, assisted 175 people in distress, and saved 33 lives. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors recognizes August 2025 as U.S. Coast Guard Month in the County of Humboldt. We honor and recognize the many contributions of the Coast Guard to our community and encourage all residents to acknowledge and uplift the meaningful service and sacrifice of the U.S. Coast Guard.
Thank you.
So we're going to get a couple pictures, and then you're welcome to talk. And we're going to have, I think Nikki's going to take a picture.
I think we'll turn this way so that they're behind us.
appreciate you being here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. And there's the proclamation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, thank you for this. Good morning. I'd just like to acknowledge that I'm here with my command senior chief, Heather Coulter, and my deputy commander, Andrew Bacon. On behalf of the men and women of U.S. Coast Guard Sector Humboldt Bay, thank you to the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors for this meaningful proclamation recognizing August as Coast Guard Month. Sector Humboldt Bay is home to a proud and capable multi-mission Coast Guard. Our units include the sector, the air station, stations Humboldt Bay, Noyo River, and U.S. Coast Guard carrier Barracuda, and the Aids to Navigation team. Together we carry out critical missions, flying MH-65 helicopters in some of the most challenging conditions in the country, piloting surf boats across dangerous bars, conducting life-saving search and rescue missions, protecting our environment, enforcing maritime law, and maintaining aids to navigation, and performing the essential support functions that keep us ready. Our history here runs deep. The Coast Guard's presence in Humboldt Bay dates back to 1856 with the establishment of the Humboldt Bay entrance light. Despite that early beacon, treacherous conditions led 23 major shipwrecks before the life-saving station was established in 1878. From those roots, our presence and partnership with the county have continued to grow, fueled by the need and the strong bond between this community and the Coast Guard. That bond is more than operational, it's personal. Coast Guard families live here. Our children attend local schools. Our spouses and partners work in your businesses. Humboldt County doesn't just host us, it welcomes us. Many of our members return for second and third tours, a testament to the deep connection they feel and to the tremendous support you guys offer. As we celebrate Coast Guard Month and the Coast Guard's 235th birthday, we also honor the families who serve alongside us. Their strength and support make our mission possible. We also remember those who made the ultimate sacrifice, whose legacy inspires us to live up to the highest standards of service. Your continued support directly strengthens our ability to serve this region. Humboldt County has always been a steadfast partner, providing a safe harbor in emergencies and standing with us in shared mission to protect lives and ensure maritime safety. This proclamation is more than a gesture. It's a reflection of the long-standing, deeply valued relationship. To the people of Humboldt County and the Board of Supervisors, thank you for recognizing August as Coast Guard Month. But I know that your support won't end at the end of August. It runs year-round. Thank you for embracing our service members and our families as your own. We're proud to serve alongside you. Thank you, and Semper Paratus.
Thank you. Is there any member of the board that would like to address this? Supervisor Bohn?
Thank you guys for your service. And when you put your life on your line, that was more than noticed in Shelter Cove a long time ago. And just to dwell on it, because it still sticks in my mind, is one of the young officers, black guys, their son was playing Little League for us. And that night he had a game. The best thing he did was he went to the game, and there were 35 Coast Guard guys in the stands to cheer that little boy on. And he probably made one of the most fantastic catches that he'll never make again in his life. So that still makes my hair stand up. So the sacrifice you guys make and what you do, especially on probably one of the most treacherous coasts that you, as you well know, if you've been to the, as I know you've been to the other ones, this is not a friendly place. And I think the sweetest sound is the commercial fishermen say, sweetest sound you ever hear is that Coast Guard helicopter coming to pluck them off or to drop a water pump because their bilge isn't working. That's a big, big thing. So thanks for everything you do.
Thank you for the support.
Anyone else? Supervisor Arroyo?
Well, thank you for coming. It was a pleasure to attend the change of command and to be able to welcome you, all three of you, to Humboldt. I know, it was really, we're constantly reminded of the, especially the search and rescue missions and just how important those are. But so much of the other, what I like to call the boring but important stuff, all the maintaining of, aids to navigation. Don't tell them I said it was boring, but, a little bit more, behind the scenes work is so important too. And I've had the pleasure of working at Sector Humboldt Bay during COVID and then at the Marine Safety Detachment back in the day. So definitely was inspired to join as a reservist because of the work that I saw at Sector Humboldt Bay. That was actually what inspired me, was seeing all the surface operations and the aviation, the maritime protection, all of those missions at once was really inspiring, and I know that many people in our community are inspired by that every day. And I do want to say thank you for the incredible work just recently with the young girl who was rescued from Big Lagoon. That is, it is always harrowing to hear about somebody being swept off or having any kind of issue in that part of the coast because it's so treacherous. So incredible work there. So thank you for coming today.
And thank you for your service as well.
So I want to thank Supervisor Arroyo for her service as well, and I think Supervisor Bohn said it well. We have one of the most treacherous coasts, and the King Range hiking trail that you guys often pluck people off of, and the camaraderie that you have with Shelter Cove Fire. That's in my district, but I also have a home out there, and I'm out there a lot, and so we see the Coast Guard come in often. You guys came to Redway School for me this year, and the kids it was the first time ever. The kids loved it. The helicopter landed in the soccer field there, and it was just amazing. And so all of the work that you do and the camaraderie that you have with the fire departments and the sheriff's departments is so much appreciated. And Humboldt County is very rugged, and as Natalie said, I was on pins and needles when the young woman got swept off, and you guys, it gives me chills right now because you were able to save a life, and you've saved many, and so I can't give you enough thanks.
Thank you.
So.
It is a treacherous but beautiful coast.
It is. It is absolutely beautiful, and we get a lot of out-of-towners like at Black Sands Beach that don't understand, and so you guys swoop in and pluck them up, as Supervisor Bohn said. Supervisor Wilson.
Thanks. I just associate myself with all the comments of my fellow supervisors. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we'll give you one more round of applause.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other comments on the consent calendar before we go to public comment? Supervisor Madrone.
Yeah, I just wanted to note all the Measure O funding on the agenda. You know, we all get questions all the time, so we passed this 1-cent sales tax. How come my roads are still a mess, right? And even my granddaughter came to me last night asking that question because she gets asked. And it takes time. The money's just starting to accumulate, but it's really good to see this finally coming forward. And, you know, not every road gets to get treated immediately, right? It takes time to make our way around the county. But this is a momentous day with this funding coming forward to start really turning the tide on taking care of our county roads. So thank you.
So I'm going to echo that and include that there are 4 items for Public Works today that are Measure O and Measure Z funded. And those are your tax dollars working for our county. And what the intent was, both of those are sales taxes that were voted in and are so important to our county. And in a really terrible time of economics, people trusted the county to say that we're going to repair our county roads and we want this done. And so not too long after, it was 7 months after it was passed, we're putting those monies to work. So I'm very happy to see that on the agenda. Anything else before we go to public comment? No? Okay, so we're going to start with public comment on the Zoom.
There is none, Chair.
Okay, public comment in the room. Good morning, Kent.
Kent Sawatsky. The Coast Guard, I was talking to them out front before the meeting. They arrive early. They're prompt people. And it was really good news. I refer to it as being undoged. They basically have quite a bit more funding than they had before to do what they do. And that's, I think, very important with the realignment of our government. So many people have saying negative things that are coming out of Washington. And I want to thank the things that are positive also that come out of Washington on these things. I did wish to we're funding, I think we have a new airline here. Fantastic that we've got a new airline. That should be brought up. The one left, and we instantly replaced it with somebody going to the same destination, it sounds like, same kind of rates. So that's very good skill set on our part, and I understand maybe we're waiving some fees and things to get them or keep them here. Strongly suggest that we do have competition with United, otherwise our prices will go through the roof. I did also wish to thank you folks for the 2 things I think on here. For the sheriff, item 25 and 26. These are all tools that are necessary for our sheriff to work, so all of these things are important when you put them on there. City of Blue Lake has had fantastic responses out there with the sheriff and all these little tools you're giving him on the way. We got rid of a homeless encampment, we got rid of a bad drug dealer. and they're working very well with Blue Lake. So I wanted to reach out to thank Billy. And part of it are the tools you give him. There's necessary tools. They solved a murder just about instantly with 2 people involved. And that was due to something which I think you guys may wish to bring up sometime, is the flock camera system. Their investigative work, and that camera system enabled us to be safe out there. So I strongly support sometime in the future you look into that and whatever you can do to fund that flock camera system. And again, shout out and thank all the people out there, all of Billy's deputies, especially in the McKinleyville thing out there, and keep giving them those tools they need in their tool belt. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment in the room? Seeing none, I'll close public comment, bring it back to the board for any last comments before a motion. Supervisor Arroyo.
I knew we were pressed for time, so I didn't choose to comment on this earlier, but since we have just a few minutes, I want to give just so much appreciation to the aviation team for working hard to secure this Breeze Airways flight service, and it's always unfortunate to lose a provider, but it's clear that our performance has been really strong, and I'm grateful to see that was set up and able to be announced so quickly. The timing was really perfect, so I see that it's on the consent calendar to accept this, and just wanted to take a moment to thank the team for all the hard work in getting that done.
I echo that as well. It was, pretty dramatic, Avello pulling out for some folks that are very dependent on those cheaper flights for medical or for travel for work, and so it was, political aside, it definitely impacted folks, and so I know Breeze isn't coming in for almost a year, but it is an option that will, something to look forward to instead of just the same old stagnant. And hopefully our aviation department is trying to secure more flights. I hear they are. I've been talking with our new aviation director, and so I'm excited to see our aviation department grow. So Supervisor Bohn.
And just so the public knows, I think we use the flock camera system now today. It's in service, so.
Yeah. So anything else? And if not, someone could make a motion to accept the consent calendar, please.
I'll move consent.
Well, second.
Okay. So we have a first and second. Okay, there are no items pulled from consent, so we'll go to public comment on non-agenda items, and we will start with Zoom.
Motion carries 5-0, and there is
Sorry.
none on Zoom.
Got ahead of myself there. So nobody's on Zoom?
No.
Okay, so we'll go to public comment on non-agenda items in the room, please. Morning again, Kent.
Kim Sawatsky, my topic is Blue Lake. It's all out there in the media, what's happening in the little city of Blue Lake. Quite contentious things going on there. It's kind of distressing to see this within a community, but sometimes change is necessary. Probably tonight's meeting there will be 5 people on the council. 4 of them will be new compared to the prior council members. People, I think something the most important, if as a father, I can say I'm extremely proud of my son. There was an item that came before them, a very contentious item in the city of Blue Lake, and he said, well, I'm actually in favor of this battery storage project, but my constituents have spoken and they do not wish to have that here. And so he voted correctly. So I think to listen to and reflect your people's opinions is very important. All of you people, you serve your people, and to reflect their opinion, I think that's what you try and do, your best thing, rather than your own opinion. Some people, like the prior mayor there, seemed to think that she was wiser than everybody else in Blue Lake. And her statement here for tonight will be, the goal and purpose of City Council is to be the vision for the future of Blue Lake. Well, I think it's their job to reflect the vision of Blue Lake. So when a majority of the people speak, like 57% of the people spoke for a change, we've gone through, everybody wants to say good things that happened. Well, unfortunately, we have a housing element that should have been done back in 2014 and then 2019. So we have some of these people who've been there for 10 years, and we haven't gotten the things done we're required to do. And now, of course, these things are coming home to roost because of the gross negligence. We have a water contract for a major project out there, a tank, and that's 13 years that was supposed to have been done. And I just want to point that out. I think it's really important. And sometimes it's time for change. Sometimes certain people's attitude are they want to hold the gavel, they want to be in charge, they feel they know more than the other people, but they won't listen to the people. The people out there are very smart people everywhere. You have a lot of constituents that are way smarter than I am, and I'm sure you go to them when you're on a topic and listen to them. And that's the biggest thing that we found why we're having to change. One of the biggest problems we had in Blue Lake is we haven't had a relationship with our tribal partners out there for 9.5 years. And tonight they're going to be sending a letter, hopefully putting that back together, just the same as you people need to have your tribal relationship and your partnerships. They're our neighbors. They're the people who are here. So anyway, looking forward to some changes. When somebody is doing a good job, you've been here for a while, you get 65 or 70% of the vote. When somebody gets 45%, that's sending a message. Thank you for my opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment on non-agenda items in the room? Okay, seeing none, I'll close that portion of the agenda. So we have a time set for 9:30, so we are going to hang out for 10 minutes and come back to the dais at 9:30. To go to County Council for our time set in closed session.
Thank you, Chair Bushnell. It is the intention of the board to meet in closed session pursuant to California Government Code Section 54956.9 D1 in order to discuss existing litigation in the matters of the Potter Valley Hydroelectric Project, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission Project Number 77-285, Christopher Mitchell versus County of Humboldt, case number 3:24-CV-03845-RFI, and Wayne Tomasini versus Humboldt County Assessment Appeals Board et al., Humboldt County Superior Court case number CV-2501448.
Thank you. Public comment on closed session. Anything on Zoom?
No, Chair.
Okay, we'll go public comment in the room.
Well, we're back at, I think we have 2 items today on Potter Valley. This one on litigation, and we have another one a little bit later. I'm not changing my opinion. If we leave the straw in there, we're going to have problems. I'm very disappointed that we're ending up in litigation, or I don't know if it's back or forth litigation. It doesn't say who's suing who. When you have a Assemblyman Rogers who basically committed to have all the water stay in the eel, and then we're not having that. When you have a U.S. Congressman by the name of Jared Huffman who possibly doesn't understand the need for all that water to stay in the river. When you have an unfortunate tribe that is not a wealthy tribe, and they pretty well are left with a large sum of money coming to them, both personally and through the water district payments and things, it's unfortunate that they don't have a basis where they could just say no to that. And it's also unfortunate, in my opinion, that a lot of the quote-unquote people who are going to benefit majorly from the restoration projects, the nonprofit for profits also have their hand out, rather than truly truly looking after what Mother Nature would be, just keep all the water there. So anyway, good luck with that, and I guess we'll have a little time off here, and then we'll be back. And I'm looking forward to seeing John Ford in the room next meeting, hopefully.
Any other public comment in the room on closed session? Seeing none, I'll close public comment, and I anticipate a half an hour, and we'll return to open session. So we're going to be adjourned in recess.
Thank you, Chair Bushnell. There was no reportable action taken with regard to items G1 and G2. With regard to item G3, the board voted unanimously to authorize the Humboldt County Counsel's Office to defend the County of Humboldt in the case of Wayne Tomasini versus Humboldt County Assessment Appeals Board et al., Humboldt County Superior Court Case Number CV 2501448.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go on to our next item, which is a time set for 10 o'clock, and it comes to us from Public Works, approval of a water diversion agreement associated with PG&E's decommissioning of the Potter Valley project on the Eel River and New Eel Russian diversion facility. And this is going to come to us from Hank Seaman. And Hank, if you could introduce who's with you today.
Good morning, Hank Seaman, Public Works Deputy Director, and I'm here with Destiny Valeska from County Council and Joel Campbell-Blair from County Council. We're the staff team that's been representing Humboldt County on negotiations for a water diversion agreement associated with PG&E's Potter Valley project with support from the board's ad hoc committee, Supervisor Bushnell and Supervisor Wilson.
Thank you. Joel, do you want to, we do have chairs over here if you want to come up.
I'm hoping to not have to talk.
Okay. Go ahead, Hank.
All right, so Pacific Gas and Electric is preparing to decommission the Potter Valley hydroelectric project, which is located on the upper Eel River. And just in a few days, PG&E will be submitting the final license surrender application and decommissioning plan to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. And then that will go under review, and PG&E will still need to develop detailed studies and plans regarding the specific measures and actions for dam removal and mitigating impacts. So dam removal won't start for several years. So the Potter Valley project has diverted water from the Eel River to the Russian River for over 100 years. And it's helpful to look at some maps for some geographic orientation. So this map shows the Eel River watershed in purple, and at the very upstream end is PG&E's Potter Valley project. So the Eel River discharges into the ocean near Ferndale and Fortuna, and then it extends up past Rio Dell to Alder Point. It crosses the corner of Trinity County, and then it extends into Mendocino County. It's near Covelo, which is the base for the Round Valley Indian Tribes Reservation, and then extends up into Lake County. And so Scott Dam, which forms Lake Pillsbury, is in Lake County, and then Cape Horn Dam, which forms Van Arsdale Reservoir, is in Mendocino County. And then that's where the diversion tunnel is that connects the Eel River and the Russian River. This is a picture of Scott Dam and Lake Pillsbury. Scott Dam is 140 feet tall and is a complete fish barrier. And then I think 12 miles downstream is Cape Horn Dam. And so this creates the reservoir, a backwater effect where water's taken into a diversion tunnel. And then several years ago, this dam was retrofitted with a fish ladder that's performs well under certain conditions, but not during winter conditions when there's heavy sediment loading. And this map shows the drainage divide between the upper Eel River and the upper Russian River. And water that's diverted through this project goes into the agricultural community of Potter Valley. And then unused water passes into the east branch of the Russian River, which flows into Lake Mendocino. And then that is managed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and Sonoma Water, and then releases from Lake Mendocino discharge into the Russian River. And that flows by the city of Ukiah, and then downstream through Mendocino County into Sonoma County, and then water supply for Sonoma County, managed by Sonoma Water, is also supplemented with water that's stored in Lake Sonoma. And so Sonoma Water is a wholesale water agency similar to our Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District. And so they sell water to cities and water districts, both in Sonoma and Marin County. And this map finally shows both watersheds. Let's just see what a footprint on the north coast the two watersheds represent. So Scott Dam and Van Arsdale and Cape Horn Dam were constructed over 100 years ago, and there were severe impacts to the Eel River and its fisheries. They blocked habitat, fish passage to habitat. They reduced flows. They disrupted sediment transport. They altered water temperature, which can cause stress for salmon and also change migration patterns. And they also created conditions that supported the presence of the invasive Sacramento pike minnow, which is a predator for salmon. This project has had a long history. Jumping forward to 2007, the volume of diverted water was a kind of a crossroads where the volumes were significantly reduced due to regulatory actions. And the water diversions to this project are an important component of the water supply for the Russian River Basin. So this project is subject to federal jurisdiction from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. FERC issues licenses, typically that go for 40 to 50 years, and the license for this facility was set to reach its term and require renewal back in 2017. And so at that point, Congressman Huffman introduced vision and expectations for what he called the two-basin solution, where there would be fair and equitable outcomes for both the Eel River watershed and the Russian River watershed. So that set kind of a framework. And then more recently, since 2023, a number of parties have been negotiating the terms for what's called a water diversion agreement that would create a framework for a new Eel Russian facility, which is also called NERF, that would implement or represent that vision of a two-basin solution. So we'll talk about the key terms in that agreement. Back in February, the parties that have been negotiating that agreement signed a memorandum of understanding, or an MOU, that defined the key provisions of the agreement. And so that agreement, the full agreement's been in development for the last several months, and last week and this week, the various boards and councils of the parties are considering approval. And we'll walk through the key provisions of that agreement. In our opinion, the key provisions from the MOU that was approved in February 2025 have not changed. So we'll walk through the key elements. The agreement has a statement of goals, and they're referred to as co-equal goals. So a goal of improving conditions on the Eel River to support recovery of naturally reproducing, self-sustaining, and harvestable native and anadromous fish populations, and also maintaining material and continued water diversions from the eel to the Russian River to support water supply reliability, fisheries, and water quality in the Russian River basin. So those are the co-equal goals. And then the agreement also states 5 primary intentions. So an important one is to advance the timely removal of Scott Dam and Cape Horn Dam. It's not uncommon for dam removal to take 10 or even 20 or more years. And so we definitely have an interest in trying to expedite that timeline for the Potter Valley project. So for the proposal to have continued diversions, there's an intent to have criteria that are based on the best available scientific information and ensure that any water diversions are consistent with recovery of Eel River fisheries. And those have been specified to include Chinook salmon, coho salmon, steelhead, and lamprey, as well as supporting a functioning ecosystem on the eel. And then the third intention is to secure equitable state and federal funding for substantial investments in both basins, and also taking a significant step to support restorative justice for the Round Valley Indian tribes, and also reconciliation with the history of impacts on Eel River communities. And then finally, we want the agreement to provide a foundation for working together with the partners in both basins, and just providing incentives and benefits that are fair and equitable, and provide incentives to continue working and collaborating together. So this is an agreement between the parties that currently does not include PG&E. And so this agreement represents the parties' proposal to PG&E. PG&E considers consideration of their property and lands and assets to be a purchase and sale negotiation. And so that process will begin soon. So this agreement represents the views of public agencies and nonprofit organizations that have interest in the Eel and Russian River basins. So there's a number of sections that talk about commitments related to PG&E's dam removal, and also the construction, operation, and maintenance of the new Eel Russian facility. So PG&E will be the lead entity that implements dam removal, and then the Eel Russian Project Authority will be the lead entity to construct and operate the NERF. And I should say the Eel Russian Project Authority is a joint powers authority, and so that is composed of Sonoma Water and then Mendocino Inland Water and Power Commission. And Mendocino Inland Water and Power Commission itself is a joint powers authority between Mendocino County, City of Ukiah, and Potter Valley Irrigation District, and 2 other districts. So this agreement represents support for PG&E implementing dam removal and also receiving the associated regulatory approvals. It also represents support to for PG&E to remove dams as expeditiously as possible, and also supporting some specific authorizations from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and then also supporting IRPA's construction, operation, and maintenance of NERF and the associated approvals. So PG&E has water rights associated with the project, and the parties to this agreement support transfer of all of PG&E's water rights to the Round Valley Indian tribes, who would then in turn enter into a lease agreement with IRPA and lease use of those water rights for the new facility. PG&E has a total of 5 water rights, and the agreement contains a number of protective measures that would be taken by IRPA if PG&E does not transfer all its water rights associated with the project. And then there's a provision that under no circumstances will water diversion through this new facility exceed the agreed upon diversion rules, which we'll talk about shortly. The agreement supports the transfer of PG&E's lands and facilities, those lands and facilities that are necessary for the new facility to ERPA. And it also supports the design for that new facility. And that new facility would not involve dams. So it would be what's called a run-of-the-river system. So the diversion facility will be constructed on the left bank, and there would be limited in-stream features. This is a rendering of the existing facility for the Cape Horn Dam and the diversion tunnel. You can see the fish ladder and the small reservoir that's formed by the dam, and this rendering shows the diversion tunnel. And so a rendering of the proposed design for the new facility has the dam removed, and it does use the foundation of the dam as a grade control structure, but it is a free-flowing river with unimpeded fish passage. So Section 15 of the agreement contains provisions related to the proposed lease agreement between Round Valley Indian Tribes and the Eel Russian Project Authority. So ERPA would make two payments. They would pay Round Valley Indian Tribes a use charge of $1 million per year to lease the water rights for operation of the facility. And those funds would be for Round Valley Indian Tribes' discretionary use. ERPA would pay a second payment, what's called a restoration payment, of a minimum of $750,000. Those funds would go to Round Valley Indian Tribes, who would then pass them through to an Eel River Restoration Fund. And then there would be a new organization that would be formed by the parties of the agreement on the Eel River side to manage those funds. And those funds would be dedicated to restoration work on the Eel River. There are provisions that if ERPA is successful with support for raising public funding for the construction costs above 75%, then that $750,000 payment would increase proportionally on a sliding scale. And the payments in the agreement are specified based on current year, and there's provisions for increases based on consumer price index changes. At year 31, if the conditional renewal is exercised, then both payments would increase. And there's details on that, but at a minimum, they would increase by 15%. So the establishment of this payment and the formation of the Eel River Restoration Fund is an important milestone because for the first time, beneficiaries of the diverted water from the eel would be paying a premium that would be dedicated to improvements on the Eel River side. So the parties have envisioned formation of a new nonprofit corporation called the Eel River Restoration Corporation that would administer the funds. The parties to the agreement would have members, representation on the board of directors of that corporation, and there may be other members on the board. So that's still to be determined. And so the allowable use of those funds have not been established, but for Humboldt County staff, we're envisioning that those funds could be used for purposes such as match funding to leverage larger funding allocations, especially state and federal and philanthropic grants to implement large-scale projects. These funds could be used as base funding to support ongoing monitoring and assessment to ensure there's a science-based approach for doing restoration. We would like to see an allowance for these funds to be used for maintenance and adaptive management of larger restoration projects. For example, the Salt River Project that's led by the Humboldt County Resource Conservation District in Ferndale. And then we're also envisioning that these funds could be used to help with capacity building for fisheries staff in Eel River tribes. So the agreement contains a provision for how the new facility would be operated and maintained, and it's very specific in terms of the rules and criteria for how diversions would be conducted. We talked about these back in February when the MOU was being considered, and Scott McBain was here to give a presentation. Scott McBain is a scientist based in Arcata who's a consultant with Round Valley Indian Tribes, and he and his team developed the diversion schedule, the rules and criteria. So in summary, the rules and criteria are based on determining what flows are needed for key river processes to recover Eel River fisheries. And so the components of that include minimum flows in the river that need to be maintained before any diversions are contemplated. So that those are considered floors, and I'll show an example of that. And then another important component is a limit on the percent of flow that could be diverted, and that both of those, the floors and the limits on percent of flow changes, vary by season. There's also provisions for ensuring that changes of diversion don't happen too abruptly. So there's what are called ramping rates. And then, the net result of these rules and criteria is that there would be a net reduction in annual volume of diversions compared to historical amounts. And really the bulk of the diversions would occur in the winter and early spring. I'll go through just a quick overview of the diversion schedule. This is a summary of the key rules and criteria for 4 different seasons. So in the fall, which extends from October 1st to December 31st, there'd be a minimum, the floor would be 300 cubic feet per second, so diversions couldn't occur if the flow in the Eel River was less than 300 cubic feet per second, and the maximum diversion rate during that period would be 20%. But there is a limitation on the diversion flow based on the capacity of the tunnel, which is 300 cubic feet per second. And then for winter and spring and summer, the minimum floors are adjusted, so it ranges from 250 cubic feet per second in the winter down to 125 in the spring, and then down to 35 cubic feet per second in the summer. And then the diversion rate changes from 20% in the fall, 30% in the winter, and then back to 20% for spring and summer. So this just represents that diversions would typically end in late spring and early summer, and it'll vary based on the water year type, whether it's a wetter or drier year. And this is an example of a hydrograph. So this is actually from Appendix 3 of the Water Diversion Agreement. So what's shown is in blue is a representation of the flows in the Eel River over time. This is in the spring, so it's from April 15th through the summer, and then to September 30th. And so for this example, in mid-April, the flows were high, and the black line shows what would be the flows after diversion. And so the difference between the black line and the blue, basically the blue line, represents what's called the divertible flow. So you can see the black line represents what the flow would be in river with diversions. The red line represents the minimum floor. And so in the spring, the minimum floor is 125 cubic feet per second. And so you can see in this example, towards the end of May, the flow in the Eel River drops below that minimum floor. And so at that point, diversions would need to cease. And then in this example, the flows increase in June, and also the floor decreases. And then there's a few weeks where there's divertible flow, and then towards the end of June, the flows drop below that floor and the diversions cease. And there would be no diversions through the summer for this example. When Scott McBain was here in February, he presented additional information on the diversion rules, and I just wanted to show his team did some hydraulic modeling of what these diversion rules and criteria would result in terms of reduction in flows at various points downstream on the Eel River. They looked at a modeling period from 1968 to 2017. And so there's two tables here. One, the one on top is really kind of the maximum case in which, you know, there's no constraints on diversions on the Russian River side. So I should say, you know, they have constraints in terms of storage and ability to use water. And so, you know, this doesn't account for that on the table on the top, but then the table at the bottom does account for their current constraints. And so it's helpful to look at the bottom row on the two tables, which show flows at Scotia, which is here in Humboldt County in the Eel River Delta. And you can see the percent reduction for the two cases, you know, with and without constraints. And so without constraints, the range of reduction would be, you know, 0.2% up to 1.7%, and then factoring in the constraints on the Russian side, the range would be 0.2 to 1.4%. So that's the percent reduction that would occur at Scotia on average with the diversion criteria. So I'd like to go back and just finish the pieces on one slide. In addition to establishing the rules and criteria for diversions, the agreement also has provisions for that ERPA would conduct ongoing monitoring, and also the agreement defines some performance metrics. And so the purpose of the monitoring would be to confirm that the diversions are achieving the anticipated and desired performance metrics. And then the agreement has provisions for adaptive management. And what that means is that in the event that the performance metrics are not being met, then there's a provision for changing the diversion schedule. And there's a process to do that with input from a technical advisory committee. So I'll go forward. So we're winding down here. The agreement has a section on the term. So the term is the duration of the agreement. It would have an initial term of 30 years. And then after that initial term, there would be a conditional renewal for 20 years if all 5 of these conditions would be met. And the conditions include receiving a minimum award of funding in the Eel River Restoration Fund that does not include the annual restoration payments. So it's, you know, additional state and federal funding on top of the annual payments. So there's a minimum threshold that would need to be met for the renewal. In addition, ERPA would need to comply with both the payment and the water diversion provisions in the agreement. ERPA would need to make a demonstration that continued diversion is not expected to adversely affect recovery of Eel River fisheries. They would also need to demonstrate a continued need for diversion, and they would need to demonstrate progress towards the ultimate vision of self-reliance and the retiring of water diversions from the eel. So after the initial term, and assuming the conditional renewal was exercised after that 50-year period, the agreement contemplates that there could be a conditional renewal. Humboldt County, California Trout, Round Valley Indian Tribes, and Trout Unlimited would need to all affirmatively approve that discretionary renewal at that point. And if the renewal is not exercised, then operations would terminate and the diversion facilities would be removed by IRPA. So the rest of the agreement, I'll just briefly touch on here. It includes some goals for additional fundraising. So these are not mandatory goals, but these are kind of big, far-reaching goals to try to work together to secure funding for equitable investment in both basins. And then there's a number of provisions to create a process and a sequence of actions that could be taken in the event that there's a need for dispute resolution. And then it also includes a number of legal provisions that are typically some standard language provisions. So Humboldt County's position going into these negotiations is that initially our first preference, our strong preference would be for Eel River water to stay in the river, but we would consider this agreement if there were strong protections and benefits for the Eel River. And speaking for staff, we feel like this agreement does provide strong protections and benefits. We've summarized them here. In terms of protections, PG&E's water rights would be owned by an entity based in the Eel River. There would be limited water diversions that would be significantly reduced from historical peaks, and those are based on the needs of Eel River fisheries. We talked about a free-flowing river, also having provisions for monitoring performance and even adaptive management if needed, and then having a limited term to the agreement so that it's not in perpetuity, and that our successors would have the discretion whether to continue or to make a decision on whether it should be terminated. And then in terms of benefits for the eel, this agreement would represent securing support from the major Russian River water users for their support of PG&E's dam removal as expeditiously as possible. This agreement also represents a strong defense against other efforts. There's other visions of trying to retain PG&E's dams for the future, and so having an agreement that's really based on a regional collaboration and provides some certainty for Russian River water users is a strong defense against trying to retain the dams. And then having an annual payment, a committed base payment for Eel River restoration is significant, and that payment and the terms of the agreement can be a catalyst to try to leverage and deliver some significant investment for Eel River restoration. And then being a party to the agreement would give Humboldt County a seat at the table and ability to represent our interests and influence kind of the future operations and decision making. And then this agreement has been a long road, and there's been give and take, and I think there's a lot of mutual respect on both sides, and I think it's an achievement to work together and not have a zero-sum game, but create something that is attentive to each party's needs and also provides a strong foundation for moving forward in collaboration. Just a few final notes. The Wiyot tribe sent your board a support letter yesterday, and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife has allocated a total of $18 million to support the two-basin solution for this calendar year, and that would be divided equally between the basins. So $9 million for the Eel River, $9 million for the Russian River. That does create some incentive to create the Eel River Restoration Corporation, so we can have that fund available to receive those funds. And so if this agreement is approved, then going forward we would continue discussions with PG&E, with our partners. We would come back to your board with an MOU about that restoration corporation. We're anticipating that there'll be an MOU with the parties and PG&E regarding how we work together through the license surrender process and decommissioning, and there'll be other activities to help advance this agreement. So, just going forward, we welcome any initial questions from the board, and then representatives from California Trout and Trout Unlimited, who are two parties to this agreement, have come today to share comments. We've also reached out to Friends of the Eel River, and they have comments to share. And then we recommend that you open up for public comment. And then our staff recommendation is to approve the water diversion agreement that was attached to this staff item and authorize the chair to sign. We also recommend you authorize staff to approve both Humboldt County's public statements regarding the agreement and also joint statements or letters by the parties of the agreement going forward. And then we also recommend that you direct us to continue working with the parties, with PG&E and other stakeholders to advance both the two-basin solution and the decommissioning of the Potter Valley project. So that ends the staff report.
Thank you. How many speakers do we have that are going to come forward?
Trout Unlimited would go first. They have one representative, and then California Trout, and they have one representative.
Okay.
And I believe Friends of the Eel has one as well.
So 3?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to ask the board just for clarifying questions, and then we'll go on to the 3 speakers, and then go to public comment, and then come back to the board. Is there any clarifying questions from the board? Comments? Okay. Hank, if you could introduce the first speaker.
The first speaker is Brian Johnson with Trout Unlimited.
Okay. So we usually allow 5 to 6 minutes for speaking. Do you have a time frame?
I think it'll be shorter than that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair, Supervisors. My name is Brian Johnson, and I'm a Senior Policy Advisor for Western Water and Climate for Trout Unlimited. And we're prepared to be a signatory to this agreement, and we urge your support. TU, my organization, has worked for several decades now on both sides of the divide, in the Russian River and in the Eel River, on habitat restoration projects with water users to improve their water supply reliability and stream flows. And the eel is a national priority water for us, and so we're in it for the long haul here. We support this knowing full well that many of our members would prefer to just see the diversion go away, and I think might have liked it if we would have simply fought for dam removal and an end to the diversion. We feel pretty strongly that that's not the right approach. And at first it was, at a minimum, making sure that we had a seat at the table, because not doing so and allowing a water war could easily lead to delay in dam removal, or in a worst case scenario, a diversion that isn't conditioned to protect the Eel River. Along the way, though, we came to believe that the agreement that's before you today is affirmatively good for the Eel River. As Hank explained, it is conditioned with scientific rules to protect the river from the effects of the diversion. It has a monitoring program. It's enforceable by you and other Eel River parties to ensure that it sticks. It has funding for the Eel River coming out of water sales, and it's not perpetual. As you heard, the agreement can only be renewed if it's doing what it's intended to do, and ultimately if it has the support of your successors. So with all that, we're prepared to put our name and reputation on the line and assign people to this for coming decades to make it work, and we hope you do too. Thank you.
Thank you. Before you step away, are there any questions from the board? No? Thanks so much. Hank, if you could introduce your second speaker.
Next is Charlie Schneider with California Trout.
Chair Bushnell, members of the board, Charlie Schneider with California Trout. I'm a senior project manager. Cal Trout got its start in the Eel River. The catalyst of our organization was fighting Dos Rios Dam, which would have flooded Covelo and Round Valley Indian tribes and dammed the entire middle fork of the Eel. So we too are in the Eel for the long haul. And also approach this agreement with trepidation. You know, IRPA originally proposed this diversion to PG&E without Cal Trout as a member, or Humboldt, or Trout Unlimited, or just those three parties. So when this proposal went into PG&E, you know, all three of our groups were outsiders, and so we were fortunate enough to be invited back to the negotiating table through the leadership of Round Valley Indian Tribes and California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and like TU, we believe that we've reached a strong agreement here that will be durable moving into the future, and I think that that's the part of the promise with this agreement. For our organization, you know, as a fisheries organization and a conservation organization, we're really concerned about the technical details of this project, specifically the type of diversion structure, the flows, and again, what sort of added benefits this agreement can give to the Eel River and also the other parties. And so we feel that the design of the facility is supportive of volitional fish passage. Cal Trout and others worked with a technical advisory group, you know, NGOs, agencies, to help refine that design to the 30% design that it's at now, and that's moving to a 60% design, so more work to be done on the structure, but we feel that what's been proposed will offer reliable fish passage. On the flows piece, we've been heavily engaged to ensure that the ecological flows provided or not taken from the Eel River are not only protective of salmonids, but the river ecology, right? Fish need a place to live. They need a healthy ecosystem. They need food resources. So we took an approach that wasn't just single species, but would also care for the health of the river. And then finally, I think one of the really important pieces of these negotiations has been that they've been interest-based, and when you have those type of negotiations, you ultimately seek a goal that's maybe more than any individual party can get. And so part of that, I believe, is the funding that will come to the Eel River, both to support restorative justice for Round Valley Indian tribes, but also for restoration. And that funding, while it may seem small in terms of, you know, completing a large-scale restoration project, the fact that it's unrestricted funding allows us to leverage it sometimes up to 10 times for state and federal grants that we believe will offer a considerable benefit to both the capacity of restoration in the Eel River Basin and also just our overall ability to get stuff done more quickly. With climate change, with ongoing threats to, you know, our fisheries and our river, we think that funding is really critical moving forward. So we would urge your support. Cal Trout will be signing this WDA as well, and we look forward to working with you in the future to recover the river. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you. Oh, hold on. There's one question.
It's not, it's just a comment.
Yeah.
We weren't fortunately asked to come to the table. It was fortunate for them that we were willing to come to the table.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Next speaker.
Next speaker is Alicia Heyman from Friends of the Eel River.
Hi there.
Good morning. I'm Alicia Heyman. I'm the Executive Director for Friends of the Eel River. And I want to start off by just saying thank you all for the opportunity to speak today. And thank you to the county staff who have been working so hard to help free the eel. Friends of the Eel River was founded for this very purpose, and so this is a really exciting time for us. But I'm going to speak to you today from a little bit of an outside perspective because we are not signatories to the WDA, and we were not a part of the negotiations, but we do appreciate where this agreement has landed. So I'm glad to be here again to comment on this progress that we're making, and I think one of the most important aspects of this agreement is the work that's been done with Russian River stakeholders to arrive at a deal that will go into the federal regulatory process with as little controversy as possible. This agreement is really important because it commits those former opponents of dam removal to supporting dam removal, and in exchange, Eel River stakeholders are supporting an ecologically appropriate diversion. I will note that the MOU that you all and other parties signed back in February had the same intention, but over the last 5 months, we have continued to hear some rhetoric from some of those signatories in the Russian River indicating a lack of support for dam removal. And so I just really want to encourage your board, your staff, and the other signatories to this agreement to hold those parties to this agreement and their representatives to the agreement to support dam removal. This is really one of the primary benefits that the eel receives as a part of this agreement. As Friends of the Eel has emphasized many times, to reap the benefits of dam removal on the eel, it has to happen quickly. And this deal makes an important shift when it comes to the way that flows are managed in the eel, to diverting only 1% of natural flows that the eel can spare, and only during the appropriate wet season. This is a big improvement from diverting the majority of the flows during the spring and summer, as is the case now. While we are one of those groups that would prefer to see the diversion ended, we feel confident that the flow schedule developed by the technical team will protect habitat in the eel and sets appropriate seasonal boundaries on the diversion. It's important for the public to know, as Hank mentioned, that the agreement also provides for changes to the diversion schedule. For example, if monitoring shows unexpected adverse effects to the Eel River. And I think that's a really important element to keep in mind, the flexibility that's built into this agreement. We also appreciate the work that went into ensuring that the WDA is protective of Eel River flows regardless of how PG&E's water rights transfer ends up. We know that there are still some pieces that are up in the air as we move forward. While it is obviously important to protect Eel River flows, opening access once again to the 280 miles of steelhead habitat that is currently locked up behind Scott Dam is probably the single most important restoration action we can take to support the eel's still wild steelhead and give them a real chance at recovery. The descendants of the eel's former run of summer steelhead are still up there in the headwaters behind Scott Dam, living as rainbow trout. They still hold those unique genes and the potential to revive that population, and we see that as one of the most exciting elements of dam removal. When we give those fish access to the sea, their offspring can once again live as summer steelhead and serve their important role in bringing ocean nutrients farther up into the watershed than any other salmonids can reach. The Northern California summer steelhead, which were recently listed as endangered under the California ESA, they're really a treasure of the Eel River. And so with that in mind, I want to emphasize again that the monitoring plans that are a part of this agreement really need to explicitly call out monitoring for summer steelhead. So please, as you go forward, just staff and other parties, make sure that the monitoring plans explicitly mention accounting for the unique life history and different run timing of summer steelhead. I want to thank you all for continuing to keep Round Valley Indian tribes in the driver's seat when it comes to managing future diversions and directing restoration. The provisions in the Eel Russian Project Authority contractors to give preference to tribal members in hiring are really important, and we really appreciate that. And lastly, I just want to say that I also very much appreciate the statement of intent in the agreement for Humboldt County and the Round Valley Indian tribes to secure full wild and scenic river designation for the eel from Cape Horn Dam to the headwaters following dam removal. But thank you all for your great work.
Thank you. Are there any questions? No. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna come back to staff and then we'll go, if there are any clarifying questions from the board, then we'll go out to public comment. Hank, do you have anything to add before public comment?
Nothing to add at this moment.
Okay. Board, anything? Okay, so now we will go to public comment and we're gonna start with public comment on the Zoom.
There is none, Chair.
Okay, and we'll go to public comment in the room. Hi, welcome. Come forward. You'll have 3 minutes.
Where do I give handouts for the board?
To council here.
Good morning. My name's Vivian Hillowell, and I'm speaking today for Humboldt Fishermen's Marketing Association, HFMA. Much of the fleet is out fishing for halibut today, and they've asked me to give this statement. So we invite you to ask any questions about details that you might have, so I can keep my statement short. The Water Diversion Agreement provides for funding for restoration and likely a water right. HFMA's main concern is that any dam removal process must be paired with a timely and comprehensive salmon reintroduction plan that leads to a dependable harvestable surplus. The goal cannot be to simply meet the minimum requirements of delisting under the Endangered Species Act, but rather to restore salmon abundance to levels that can once again support local, high-quality food production and commercial harvest. This effort would make use of the full range of proven science-based tools, such as hatch boxes and egg injection into the gravel. These approaches can improve early life stage survival while supporting natural production during early phases of restoration. When combined with reopening pre-dam access to prime cold water spawning and rearing habitat in the headwaters, ensuring adequate Eel River water remains in the eel for salmon, and proactive eradication of predatory pike minnow. At one time, when 250,000 native smolts a year were raised and released in the cool South Fork eel for 10 years, coded wire tag counts showed up to 11% returns, where normally you would expect 1% to 2% returns. Now we are ready and willing to work together with you to build on that success. To that end, we hope you share our ultimate goal to restore the once abundant Eel River Chinook salmon stocks to harvestable levels in order to support coastal economies, sustain fishing communities for generations to come, and ensure continued access to healthy, locally harvested seafood, as well as the other beneficial uses of our water in the wild and scenic Eel River system. I've included in my handout a position statement from Pacific Coast Federation of Fishermen's Associations and IFR, Institute for Fisheries Resources, that supports reintroduction of salmon where it's appropriate to jumpstart these populations. Thank you.
Thank you. We don't do back and forth with public comment, so we have your handout, and if anybody wants to contact you, they will.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I don't apply the term fair and equitable to what we're signing here. The odds are quite strong, in my opinion, that due to the animosity between our current president and Mr. Huffman, that this whole project will be trumped. One pen signature on a piece of paper and everything here goes away, as long as that straw is in the water. Of course, should our current president decide to deliver all of the water down south of the eel, that's within his power, is my understanding. He could put in a new tunnel there, a new straw 10 times the size it was, and pump the thing dry anytime he wanted to. Now we're just going to hope that doesn't happen. Number two, the karma, negative karma, incurred by the people in the Russian River Basin is something they may regret having to deal with. Mother Nature bats last. When you try and push Mother Nature around, she usually has ways of responding, whether it be for fires, floods, earthquakes. I don't even know where the closest fault line to that particular straw is, but I could see Mother Nature exercising her willpower and completely wiping that out. If it's offshore, we could be looking at negative karma of a 9.2 earthquake, and that would have major negative consequences on all of us here. So I listen to the fish. The people won't be here eventually. The fish hopefully will be. The people seem to be very arrogant. They think they can buy their way, use money, use power to fight what should be done and what's right and fair. And I guess I probably shouldn't say I really wish that Mother Nature would do her thing, but I actually wish she would. Thank you for my opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment in the room? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment, and then we're going to come back to our board. Supervisor Arroyo.
Thank you. Well, I think our previous position statement outlined our, our approach to this well. And as you said, my preference would be for all the water to remain in the eel. But given where we are and all of the circumstances that have existed for 100 years and what the power dynamics are in Northern California, I think this is a wise approach and a reasonable approach that gives us the best chance of moving forward. I do want to underscore Chairman Brian Mead from the Wiyot Tribe's letter. You mentioned it, but since Chairman Mead and other representatives of the Wiyot Tribe were not able to be here today, their letter states that they are expressing strong support for the proposed water diversion agreement, and that it will serve a critical role in ensuring the restoration of a healthy Eel River for generations. And so that letter, I believe, will end up being part of the public record on this item, but was really appreciated. And I wanted to just thank the tribe for reaching out and really thank staff greatly for all of the work you've done and all of the ways you've incorporated our input, as well as our partners. Thank you for going to bat for something that ultimately will at least seed the restoration fund for the eel in a way that hasn't historically happened and we haven't seen in the past. So I look forward to dam removal first and foremost, and also the chance to restore the eel and hopefully use this funding to leverage other funding and really tie our basins together in the shared goal of restoring the eel in a way that also hasn't been done in the past. So thank you for the ad hoc for your work.
Kaylee?
Through the chair, there is a printed copy of that letter for anyone here today.
Where's the printed copy?
Next to the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Oh, thanks, Kent. Anybody else from the board? Supervisor Wilson.
Yeah, just emphasizing, first of all, I really want to say our attorneys, Joel and Destiny. You guys are amazing. I want to point out that we have a great staff that's been working on this through the leadership of Hank Seaman. But I want to highlight our two attorneys that have been working on this under the direction of our counsel here. Really, some of the best work I've seen in this landscape. And for those of you who question sort of or the public service of our core, I would say we have the best, and I just want to say you guys have done a wonderful job up against some big hitters, and I just want to say I feel like we were well represented in this process, 100%. Couldn't have been better. I really feel it. And it's not just dedication to this institution, but strong feelings in terms of dedication to the watershed and the creatures and humans that inhabit it. And so I want to thank you guys a lot. That being said, we have in reference to that investment, when over 100 years ago this diversion was first proposed, Humboldt County put in, I don't know, it was like $25,000 in resources, which was a lot of money back then to fight that diversion. So we have been in this game for a long time. And have stood strong in that. And it is still the core of our statement in terms of the county. That's ultimately where we were and have been standing. That being said, we're at the precipice of an agreement that will result in, hopefully, the timely removal of 2 significantly impactful dams on the Eel River. And I think that we're doing that both in compromise and in partnership with multiple agencies and tribes to get that to happen. We didn't enter into the negotiation from a position of compromise, that you don't do it, that we came in with our position, and when we came to a compromise. That partnership, again, results in the quick removal, or from a time frame, I mean, of the not the diversion, but of the dams, which result in a higher diversion. So without that partnership, it really, the trajectory did not look good. It looked like that those dams would stay for much longer. I do think, though, that the language around external forces keeping those dams alive for a long period of time, I think is a little overstated. In that, as was mentioned, there are significant seismic issues, and just their lifespan is coming to an end. And I don't think that even if you wanted to keep that sort of that storage system running, it wouldn't be the cost of that would just be so much higher. Building new dams or replacing those facilities would just be astronomically higher than what's being proposed here today. This is a much better deal for all involved in terms of from the economic perspective. So looking forward to the negotiations on how and we apply these resources for restoration in the Eel River Basin. I think they're significant. I think they can be leveraged, as Supervisor Arroyo mentioned, in ways that that'll be very beneficial. I am grateful to the transfer of the wealth/power of the water rights in terms of environmental justice. I believe that that's an important element of this, and it's true. The Russian River Basin has received an enormous amount of wealth with no payment and no resources to the basin which was most impacted and the people that were most impacted. That's changing. Would I like to see it more? For sure, but I think we got what I think was the best in terms of negotiation, because I know that there's still strain on the other end of the table, of the negotiating table, and they're both internally and economically, they're having their discussions around how that's going to work for them, which tells us that we're kind of at the limit. So yeah, I just want to be, thankful and mindful. I will be supporting this MOU. I will be supporting the goals of this. This has been a lot of work to get to this place, and we're gonna have a lot of work moving forward, negotiating the institutions and the organizations and the work that's going to be done to restore the Eel River and bring back the fish. And it's not just the summer steelhead. We have lamprey that the cute lamprey that we wanna bring back, but also the important fishery. But these fisheries are part of a broader health of the ecosystem. So it's not just in the main stem. We're talking about a watershed wide, and we had negotiations and discussions about that. So it's the tributaries, it's the estuary, it's everything else. And so I just want to say this has my support, and again, my support moving forward in sort of the work that we need to do to work together to see it through. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to just kind of go down the list here, and I'm going to echo my colleagues. I do want to thank Supervisor Wilson. We were on the ad hoc and, did spend a lot of time with Joel and Destiny and Hank and with the board's guidance, and so I really want to echo thanks to him. I want to say thank you to the Round Valley Tribe. We have had several meetings down there with some people in the audience as well, and feel that discussion is moving forward well. I do want to echo what Supervisor Wilson says, that in 1925 or 05, whenever it was, we didn't agree to any kind of diversions, and ultimately the best outcome for the Ill River would be not even to have the high water diversions. But I think this is the best outcome that we can move forward with right now. Hank and Joel and Destiny, you guys have done an incredible amount of work, with 5 of us having a lot of different thoughts and ideas and taking those back to the table and expressing our board's wishes when we didn't really even have a seat at the table, and making sure that Humboldt was heard and that the future of the Ill River and the restoration of the Ill River was most important. So I want to really thank you all for that. And I want continued success in the future for the restoration of the Ill River. That's what's most important for the species and for their Ill River health. So thanks. And we're going to go to Supervisor Madrone.
Thank you, Chair. I too want to thank our ad hoc as well as all our staff and all of our partners in this. It's the best agreement we can get at this time. And to keep it short and sweet, I look forward to the end of the dam age or damage on the Eel River. So looking forward to that. Thank you.
Supervisor Bohn.
Staff did a great job. We've got our own heavy hitters. Hank and I got to work with Hank a little bit on this. He talked to me off the ledge a lot. He knows my feelings on this. I find myself agreeing with people I wouldn't normally agree with. I like how we're saying this is the best we can get. So let's just be the best we can and accept it.
Thank you. I'm going to make a motion for staff's recommendation, and I think that encompasses all of what Hank, you had wanted. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. And I just can't echo enough, Hank, you've done so much work, and we are very lucky to have you.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, thank you. And thank you to everybody that came and spoke today, and we look forward to the conversations in the future with you all. Okay, we're going to go to our final item of the day, and this is coming to us from the CAO's office, and I will let her introduce it.
Thank you, Chair Bushnell. We've got Karen Clower, Assistant County Administrative Officer, and Travis Smith, CAO Project Manager. Thank you, Travis. Here to present to you on the work, the incredible work that has been done by the Americans with Disability Act team over the past year. I've got to toot their horn a little bit. They're a small but mighty team, as we like to say, and have accomplished a great deal for your board this year. Go ahead.
Thank you, CAO Hayes. Good morning, Chair Bushnell and members of the board. Happy birthday to Supervisor Bohn. I'm Karen Clower, Assistant CAO and the county's ADA coordinator. As CAO Hayes said, I have with me ADA Project Manager Travis Smith, and we're happy to provide an update on the county's ADA project. July 26 marks the 35th anniversary of the ADA, a landmark civil rights law ensuring equal access to public life for individuals with disabilities. Humboldt County's ADA compliance team reflects the county's continued commitment to compliance with the ADA in ensuring that our programs, services, activities, and facilities are accessible to all. The 2016 DOJ consent decree expired in 2020, and that was due to the county's commitment to successfully remediating specified barriers in the consent decree and the county's continued dedication to long-term proactive accessibility improvements. Interdepartmental collaboration, including work with Public Works, IT, and other departments, have been instrumental in the project's success. Do you want to advance the slide for me? Thank you. This slide demonstrates the number of barriers closed by fiscal year. You'll notice in 2019 and 2020, we were closing a significantly higher number of barriers, and this was due to the approach of just focusing on barriers listed in the consent decree. Beginning in 2023, the ADA compliance team broadened its approach to assess full building accessibility, including employee areas and deferred maintenance issues. This required substantial planning, design, and construction, as barriers were no longer easy and readily achievable at each facility. In years where projects are in design phases, barrier numbers decline and increase in years when construction is completed. As we move through the identified barriers in the consent decree or in the ADA compliance plan, projects are becoming more complex and more time-consuming and additionally more expensive. This slide indicates the percentage of barriers completed. Of the 1,533 barriers specifically identified in the consent decree, 1,424, or 93% of those barriers, are now compliant. Of the 13,885 barriers in the full facility assessments for the barriers specified in the consent decree, 7,213, or 52% of those barriers, are complete. And of the 4,800 barriers in facilities not specifically listed in the consent decree, 1,983, or 41% of those barriers, are now complete. And in new facilities, we've identified 162 barriers and completed 142 of those barriers, or 88%. This slide demonstrates the percentage of fully compliant or relocated facilities. Of the 52 facilities that were specified in the consent decree, 20 of those facilities, or 38%, are now compliant or programs have relocated to new fully compliant facilities. Of the remaining 54 facilities not specifically identified in the consent decree, 13 of those facilities, or 24%, are now fully compliant, or those programs have relocated to new fully accessible facilities. This slide demonstrates the ADA compliance project by funding source. It is estimated that the ADA compliance project will be a $53.4 million project, and it's expected to complete in 2040. This chart will indicate that the finance plan was projected to fund an estimated $19.8 million of the project. However, with the short-term financing ending in June of 2027, it is estimated that we will need to seek solutions for funding of approximately $9 million to complete the project. A close second is the general fund, anticipating to fund approximately $14.3 million of the project. Non-general fund departments and other category, which consists of grants, cost shares, and other funding sources, each are anticipated to fund about $8.1 million of the project.
Supervisor Wilson would like to ask a question.
Just quickly, is this total, or is this just this year's budget? What
Total.
Okay, thank
Currently, deferred maintenance has supported about $794,000 of project costs, and project owner responsibilities is about $2.1 million. This slide is project costs for fiscal year 25 and 26. Project costs for fiscal year 25 are expected to end at $1.9 million, and project cost for 2026 is estimated at about $7.3 million. Deferred maintenance for 2025 is $166,000 and approximately $566,000 for the current fiscal year. Finance plan for 25 was about $800,000 and is expected to be about $1.8 million in fiscal year 25-26. General fund contributions are expected to be $613,000 for 24-25 and $2.2 million in 25-26. Please note the general fund contributions are not new funding sources, rather funds dedicated to the ADA projects in prior years that have been held in fund balance or funding contributions from general fund departments. To date, project costs are estimated to be $17.8 million. The courthouse projects are included in facilities on this slide, which is the largest category. Of the $12 million spent in facilities, $4.5 million are at the courthouse. Projects included the sheriff's lobby, 4th Street improvements, courthouse restrooms, the auditor controller office renovations, 3rd floor lighting, and the DA flooring project. The sheriff's project category is approximately $2.5 million, and that was primarily in corrections. Parks, we've spent about $1.5 million, DHHS $1.4 million, libraries $447,000, and airports $54,000. In fiscal year 24-25, the ADA compliance team ended the year with approximately $908,000 in budgeted projects. Additional ADA-related work did occur. These projects were funded through departments directly, such as the DA flooring project, conflict council relocation to 515J, and other DHHS projects. And I will turn this over to Travis Smith, our ADA project manager, who does a great job pivoting to new projects as needed. And I'll let him tell you a little bit about the 24-25 projects.
Good morning, Chair Bushnell and ladies and gentlemen of the board. As Karen said, I'm Travis Smith. Before you right now is the before and afters of the courthouse restrooms project. This particular project cost approximately $2.47 million and included renovations to all public restrooms inside the courthouse. Accessibility upgrades were made in at least one of each gender-specific restroom on each floor, and in one of the two new all-gender single-user restrooms located on the 3rd floor. During the course of construction, the contractor uncovered severe deferred maintenance that resulted in the additional work that was outside of the original project scope. To make repairs to faulty plumbing components, non-conforming framing, failing flooring substrates, and other deficiencies, resulting in additional project deferred maintenance expenses in the amount of $81,000. All work had to be completed after hours so as not to interrupt county and court operations. The next project I have before you is the DA flooring project. This was a very complex project due to the phasing and due to the fact that the DA's office was in use each and every day. And so this also had to be completed at night in order to minimize interruptions on courts and county operations.
Travis, Supervisor Bohn has a question.
Do you want to mention that the one picture, the yellow tape isn't for measuring, that's duct tape to hold the seams down?
That was actually the DA's office football field at one time. Yeah. No. Yeah, that was to hold the flooring down in that office. It had been like that for about 10 years prior to this project being undertaken. The project cost was approximately $396,000 and finished under budget. You can see that the yellow tape on the floor holding carpet from creating tripping hazards. The project had to be completed in several phases and after hours, so work did not disrupt DA office functions during normal business hours. In addition to the new flooring, the DA team received renovations to their break room and new cabinets built by ADA carpenters Lindsay Day and Luis Plazas Gonzalez. And that's the next photo here. So one of the things that the ADA team tries to do when we go into our facilities is that we realize that it's been several decades since a lot of our facilities have had any type of modernizations done to them. So one of the things that we try to do is leave them better than we found them, so that it improves creature comforts for those that occupy the space, but also presents a warm and inviting environment for the people that we serve. And so this is an example of some of the craftsmanship that the ADA team has in-house. One of the projects that we were able to get through the permitting process this fiscal year, our last fiscal year, I'm sorry, was the Department of Child Support Services and Economic Development renovation out at the Plaza site. This is the 2.0 version of this project, as we did have a 1.0 version that came in over budget and that we had to go back to the drawing board with. The DCS project is back on the table and recently went through the permitting process, as I said. With ECDEV absorbing the job market program and co-letting at DCSS with the DCSS's desire to reduce their footprint in the building and provide an excellent opportunity to design a fully functional space that meets the needs of both programs and will enhance services to the public. This project is estimated to cost $700,000 and is in the final design phase before it is brought to your board to authorize staff to put the project out to bid. The current version of the project is a stripped-down version of the original project that bid in 2023 with a focus on creative ways to reduce project costs. The next project that we have before your board is a project that's going to be bidding next Tuesday. This is the Fortuna Library ADA Compliance Project, which was a joint venture with the City of Fortuna. The ADA team worked with the library and the City of Fortuna to apply for and receive California State Library's Building Forward grant. It is a 2-to-1 grant that we were able to receive for this project, where the state pays 2/3 of the cost, with the county's match being 1/3. Project scopes includes accessibility upgrades and tenant improvements to the facility, including reconstruction to both the single-user restrooms, reconfiguring the circulation desk, creating an enhanced teen area, installation of accessible computer workstations, and interior refurbishments, including fresh paint and floor coverings. The project is expected to cost approximately $309,000 and will bid next Tuesday and is anticipated to complete in January of 2026. The next project that I have before your board is the Ferndale Veterans Hall project that is currently in the final stages of construction. Ferndale Veterans Hall, the project is estimated to cost approximately $380,000 and is expected to complete in August 2025. The project includes constructing 3 new accessible parking stalls, an accessible path of travel linking the public right-of-way to the accessible entrance, reconstructing the rear ramp and steps, and replacing non-compliant doors inside the facility. Other improvements included fresh paint throughout the facility. The ADA team would like to thank Jake Johnson for his assistance with this project. And we'd also like to, both parties have been running, we've worked with this project side by side with Jake Johnson and Public Works to have as little downtime as possible on the facility to minimize the impact on veterans' operations there. The next project that we are working on that's clearing the permitting phase at this point is the Ag Building. It is expected to break ground in September of 2025. The project is estimated to cost $2.1 million. The project includes the remodel of 4 gender-specific multi-user restrooms, 1 all-gender single-user restroom, replacement of the floor coverings, new interior paint, construction of 2 new accessible parking stalls, installation of an accessible path of travel linking the public right-of-way to the facility entrance, roofing replacement, siding repairs, and repainting the exterior of the facility. In this photos, you will notice the non-compliant ramp that ran along the side of the building has been removed, and a new ramp and a secondary entrance has been created. This project is expected to complete in the summer of 2026. Once the first phase of the project is complete, Public Works Natural Resources will co-locate at this building, creating another opportunity to locate like services together. The next project I have before your board is the Big Lagoon County Park ADA compliance project. It is currently under construction, as you can see by the photographs, and is expected to complete in October 2025. The project is estimated to cost approximately $820,000. The project is partially funded using grant funds thanks to the Prop 68 per capita grant program through the state of California. The scope includes new accessible concrete walkways, curbs, detectable warning systems, and pavement markings, new accessible RV parking stalls, new accessible picnic sites with tables, grills, and a viewing area, refurbishment and accessible modifications to both the campground and day-use restroom facilities, new outdoor rinsing shower and gray water system, and upgrades to 2 tent campsites and 1 RV campsite, making them fully compliant with the ADA. The next project that I have before your board is the Rohnert Airport Terminal project that was undertaken in-house by the ADA compliance team this last fiscal year. This is the terminal building at the Rohnert Airport. As I said, this was an in-house project where ADA team was able to renovate the restrooms to make 1 single-user restroom fully compliant with the ADA and add a makeover to the 2nd single-user restroom, as well as make other ADA modifications and cosmetic improvements to the facility. During construction, the ADA team found subterranean termite damage and oversaw the eradication and damage repairs to the exterior of the building. The ADA portion of the project costs approximately $6,200, while termite eradication and other deferred maintenance repairs cost approximately $4,500. And this is the before and after of the interior restrooms. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Karen.
Thank you. The curb ramp upgrade portion of the ADA project is managed by Public Works Roads Department and is ongoing. To date, approximately 373 curb ramps of the 1,485 required curb ramps have been certified as compliant. And in fiscal year 25-26, $5.7 million has been budgeted, with many projects transitioning from design to construction. These projects include completion of the Ferndale Vets building, kitchen upgrades at the Fortuna Veterans Hall, improvements to Murray Field Airport Terminal and Path of Travel, completion of the Fortuna Library, a new ramp at the Coster Street building, or Building A, construction at the Ag building, completion of the Big Lagoon Campground and Day Use project, construction of the Economic Development Child Support Tenant Improvement project, courthouse flooring and painting, and improvements at the animal shelter, and completion of the Sheriff's Office's administration remodel project. The ADA website coordinators, Michael Joker, I cannot pronounce Michael's name, I'm so sorry. Michael Joker in County IT, Bridget Acosta, and Kati Gallardo will be focusing on website accessibility efforts to forms, flyers, agendas, and report documents we publish to the external and internal websites and social media. The county currently meets 74% of the WCAG 2.1 level AA standards. Full compliance is required by April of 2026. And the county is working on an art project where art displays in county facilities will now be featured on the website. By scanning a QR code, you'll be able to learn more about the pieces of art. This enhances accessibility for individuals with low vision who are blind, and for members of the public who just want to learn more about the art projects in county facilities. The Redwood Art Association, we want to give them a big thank you. They did create QR codes for their art displays at the county airport, ACB. So that is kicking off this project. And in closing, Humboldt County has made significant strides in enhancing accessibility across its facilities, services, and digital platforms. The ADA compliance team extends appreciation to the Board of Supervisors and department heads for their continued support and commitment to accessibility for all in our facilities. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Supervisor Arroyo.
I don't have any questions. I just want to express appreciation. This is a ton of work that you get done, and I'm thrilled to see some of the projects that you've been able to accomplish in-house and in a really creative and effective way. So just so grateful to have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Madrone.
Great job, really. Great job on everything. So much progress.
Supervisor Bohn.
Basically, same thing. Good job. This can was kicked down the road for how many years? And I know when I first came on the board, they says, hey, we have this little problem here that we haven't taken care of. And the board at the time and everything else as well, we better start now, better than, and it's really done a lot of difference in everything else. So I appreciate everything Travis has done and the team over at the clubhouse and stuff like that, getting things done because they can build those cabinets and stuff. We've given them a place to work. So that's a big deal.
So I think you have a master craftsman amongst you that does a lot of work. And Travis, on some of those slides you showed the craftsmanship. I know that it's a joint effort, but Lindsay does amazing work. And I've seen a lot of what he's done, including putting up our privacy door really fast in the BOS, and appreciate that. Appreciate all of the attention to what you guys have done, and Travis, you referenced to trying to save money and to do that affordably. When doing ADA upgrades is really not an affordable work, and lots of mandates, so thank you. Supervisor Wilson.
I have a couple of questions. First, appreciation for all the work, because it's important to make everything accessible that we can. It doesn't just help people that are targeted by the ADA, but really much beyond that. And certainly when you have families and people with strollers and all the other things, that it manifests in a much more equitable space. Speaking to that, this consent decree came from the Department of Justice, the federal level. How many? I didn't really get how many projects are left under the decree specifically that we're in need to do.
What we reported on today, and when we talked about the facilities and the counts of barriers closed, those are what we're required to do. And any new construction requires everything to be fully ADA compliant as well. So anytime we're doing improvements to a building, whether they're listed in the consent decree or not, they do have to be fully compliant.
But my question is specifically how many are in the consent
That were
decree
listed in the
left to be
consent
done?
decree?
Yeah.
I have that right here. So in that were specifically identified in the consent decree itself.
Yes.
Where it said in 30 days you're going to finish this, and in 60 days you're going to finish this project. That is it started at 1,533 barriers, and we've completed 1,424 of those barriers. So roughly there's 100 of those specific barriers remaining. And
Okay,
then
99 left.
And then in addition to that,
Yep.
In the consent decree, it said, so you're going to do all of this in 30, 60, 90, 36 months, in all these dates, right? And then you're going to do everything in that building. So that was 13,885 barriers, and to date we've completed 7,213 of those.
Wait. So is that part of the consent decree? So the consent decree has a specific number of projects, and then it has a specific number of the buildings. Is that what we're getting at?
So the consent decree said, in these timeframes, you're going to remediate these barriers. That's the first number. And then when you finish that, you're going to do everything in those buildings, everything that's not compliant in those buildings, you're going to do in 36 months is what the consent decree said. And then when you finish that, you're going to do everything else not specified in the consent decree.
I hear you. So, I mean, one of the issues around this consent decree that I feel like is that, and I think that the federal level didn't account for this, is we may not be in those buildings forever, right? And we may be looking for new places to go, but they didn't seem to really be too concerned about the movement of moving beyond those spaces, which has had impacts in our ability to finance moving to new places. So in some ways, this requires us to spend money on buildings that we don't own, some of which are beyond their lifespan technically. And so we're spending a lot of money on places we may not be under this consent decree from the federal government. My question kind of leads to, now we have a different administration. What's our relationship with the DOJ? Is there actually, with all the firings at the DOJ and everything that's been happening there, is there still an ADA group there? And second tier off of that is, with the sort of the rhetoric and sort of the issues around what they consider diversity, equity, and inclusion, has there been impacts in the ADA programs at the federal level based on those new policies?
So to answer your first question, we have not been in contact with the DOJ, and quite honestly, we hope to not have to communicate with the DOJ over our ADA compliance.
Right.
Has there been impacts? Some of the support networks are concerned about, and that would be like your Pacific ADA Center, your Northwestern ADA Center, that are funded through federal dollars. There is some concern that they may be losing a portion of their funding, but ADA has not gone away. It is a civil rights law. We are way behind the timeline established by the ADA to make our buildings compliant, and that's why we ended up in the consent decree.
I hear you. The Voting Rights Act is also a civil rights law being reinterpreted by this administration in very dramatic ways. So just because something is a civil rights law at the federal level doesn't mean that we're not seeing significant policy changes around its interpretation.
I've not heard of significant changes around the ADA at this point.
I hear you. Thank you so much. And again, this doesn't diminish the importance of the work that needs to be done to make all our facilities accessible. But at the same time, I know you guys have been strategically looking at, like, well, are we going to be moving out of this building? How long are we going to be here? We do have a strategic plan to own more of our facilities. It's in our strategic plan, so I'm hopeful that we're accounting for that. I'm going to switch to the more positive side of this discussion. The work that's been done is really nice, and it's been pointed out. I just want to say, like, what Travis said, it's not just about the accessibility, but it's also about the livability of these spaces, and the woodwork that's been done in those spaces has been really great at a good deal. I want to say, like, you guys have delivered quality in an efficient and speedy manner, and I just want to I'm really thankful for that. So thanks for entertaining my discussion around, our relationship around the consent decree and the Department of Justice and that sort of thing. Again, don't want to diminish the work that you guys are doing. Thanks.
Supervisor Bohn.
Yeah, two things. Those other agencies, even though they may lose funding, what they'll do is, like a lot of state agencies, what they do is they get to keep what they kill, basically. They get to keep their fines, so they're going to keep us in line. But didn't we get relieved from the consent decree because of the work? I mean, we still have to do it, but because of the work you had done, the time frame we did it and the way we approached it with the CAO and especially you and Travis doing this, aren't we released from the consent decree? It's not, I mean, we still have it, but it's not a shadow hanging over us anymore. Would be that the right term, or?
Yes, we've been released from the terms of the consent decree. Part of the negotiations for that was the continued progress in making improvements. So that's something that we strive for each year, is to continue to remove some of those barriers that had been identified in the consent decree if we're still in those facilities. So what we don't want to have happen is something to rise to the level of a complaint that reaches the Department of Justice and have them come back and reassess.
And that would be the reason we have the silence from the Department of Justice. So appreciate it. Again, nice job.
I'm going to go out to public comment. Is there anything on the Zoom?
No, there's not, Chair.
How about in the room?
Well, that's a little bit of a quandary whether you poke the bear with the DOJ or not. You have lobbyists who should be able to find out whether they're going to continue to enforce that in any way, shape, or form. It's a major unfunded mandate. I can totally understand the strategy of stalling out and playing as slow as you can to evolve and get through your new facilities kind of thing. On the other hand, you do want to minimize that in many ways. I did notice, and I strongly support everything that's happening here under the American Disabilities Act. Of course, we're getting a whole bunch of upgrades, facility upgrades and improvements that they're on the edge, and I strongly support that. I have no problem with using the money and the desire to do that kind of thing. The only major problem I have was there was a pie graph up there that had 200% on it, and I have a hard time with those. But anyway, I'm sure if you go back through there, you'll see what I'm talking about on that particular one. Hard to understand a pie graph that has 95% and then another 120 or whatever to go with it. Great job. I think that we should hopefully not have any more attention on it. I did want to make one thing. As you get older, you notice things, and a lot of people complain. Those stupid yellow rumble strips are not easy to walk across when you have a problem, even when you have good knees. And that's one of the biggest, people in wheelchairs say they hate those things. So anyway, I just thought I'd bring that one up, one of my pet peeves. And we'll see you guys probably in about another 3 weeks or something of that nature. So have a good summer vacation or whatever you're doing.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to receive and file, please?
Motion to receive and file made.
I'll second.
And I want to point out rumble strips are for people that can't see very well, and they're very, very helpful for
That's
those
correct.
folks. So thank you.
Or the lines in the concrete.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. So the board is taking our annual 2 weeks dark, so we will not have a meeting for 3 weeks, second week in August. And so I hope everybody has a good next 2 weeks for the summer, and we're adjourned.
We'll have to think of a different term than dark, I think. Maybe.